Okay, please come to order. We're about to start our budget work session, February 15th, 2022, and turn it over to our CFO. Got it.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I am here with Jody Kwasny, our Deputy Director, and we're just going to, a lot of this is follow-up from your December 14th budget work session. So this is primarily CIP. This is the full request for CIP now, because you go through, you start in like November, and then you kind of go through it and give us direction, and then we come back with any other changes. But now a fully balanced all the sources for CIP. So you'll see at the top of the agenda, we're going to go over the summary review FY 2023 funding source, the general obligation bonds that are planned to be used, the debt capacity, the operating impacts, the CIP sheets with any changes from December, the impact fee calculation, and then the bond sale information. And then we'll go through, again, we have our CIP group here. We've got Gary Whipple from Public Facilities, Chris Casalemas from Economic Development, Art Shepard from Recreation and Parks, and Kim Howe from Public Schools. Sorry, Kim. And then we'll go over a little bit in operating, and this is really just follow-up. This is an updated FY 2023 income tax calculation with the final tax year 2020 information received in January, and then we'll try to get a decision on that homestead tax credit. So right now, I'd like to turn it over to Jody, who's going to go over all the follow-up stuff from December, and then I'll chime in when needed.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
So the first thing we'll do is turn to page 1 and pages 1 through 3. This is our summary document of our capital budget plan for 2023 and the 5 out years. And this schedule is listed by project and includes all the changes that we've received to date. The page numbers to the left actually correspond to the page numbers in the CIP project sheets that were submitted under a separate document. But we also have the CIP sheets that have the changes since our last meeting that we'll go through in more detail. So if you turn to page 2, at the bottom of that page, we have the project summary by CIP type. And then if you turn to page 3, that is our summarized funding source that we've applied to our projects by year. So next, if you turn to page 4, this details how we allocated the funding source to balance the 2023 CIP plan. Starting with the first column on the left, it provides the project name. Moving to the right, this column is the 2023 plan that was approved last year in the 2023 budget. The next column, we have the changes that have been approved in this year's budget work sessions, with a total net decrease to the plan of $182,000. That brings us to the $64.35 million CIP costs to be funded. And as mentioned, we have $22.3 million available in bond authority that we applied to our larger projects. Moving to the right to the transfer taxes column, in our last work session, we noted that our transfer tax estimates will increase from $7 million to $8 million a year. But for 2023 only, we've added an additional $3 million for transfer taxes already collected. So looking at the PAYGO, we need $13 million in PAYGO to balance the CIP, which is $2.5 million lower than our estimate back in December. Are there any questions?
That's good.
Okay.
And what created that $2 million? I'm sorry, I may have been.
So it's mainly the additional revenue that we added for the transfer taxes.
Transfer tax, right.
Yeah. Okay, if you could turn to page 5, please. Pages 5 and 6, this is our bond authority, and the top of this schedule on the left-hand side is the history of the bond authority received from 2018 to date, totaling $99 million. Moving over to the right, this provides the schedule of estimated bond authority needed for 2023 through 2028 as the CIP plan stands now. And then the average bond authority needed for each year is $20.6 million. The schedule below just details all of the bonds applied to the individual projects. If there are no questions, we can move on to page 7. Okay, this is our updated debt capacity. Looking at the first row, we have the real property assessable base per the November assessments from ESTAT. This shows the increased growth of 3.2% in 2023. Projecting out through 2028, we use 2.9%, which is the 3-year average from 2021 to 2023. We'll update this data again with the constant yield letter that we received yesterday, and we'll bring it back in our March budget work session. Moving down the page in the 2021 column, we have the outstanding debt for the county per the audit of $134.8 million. In the out years, we're projecting the debt to increase based on the approved plan. And the section at the bottom portion of the page shows the computation on how we project the debt in the out years. But back up there, if you go to the right, the county's debt is highlighted in yellow, and we have the first 2 ratios we use in measuring our debt capacity. And this is the outstanding debt as a percentage of assessable base. And as you can see, we're well within our debt limits of 1.89%. Our highest is out in 2027 at 1.32%. Below, highlighted in green, is the available bond authority of $22.3 million. Moving down 2 more lines, we have the estimated borrowings for each year. And the next borrowing is $30 million. It's scheduled to take place in July. And although this schedule has our borrowings mapped out for the 5-year projection, in conjunction with this, we also monitor the actual spend or progress in the projects, and we only borrow when the cash flow dictates. Lastly, at the bottom 2 rows, highlighted in yellow, shows our debt service as a percentage of revenue, which is 4.64%, well below our policy limit of 10%, and our highest is in 2028 at 5.9%. Are there any questions?
We usually have, and it's probably here, I just haven't seen it yet, the amount that we've actually put out of our own money so far before we do go to the bond market.
Oh, the unexpended, yes.
Yes.
I believe it's at 22 million right now.
We're at 21.
21?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the 15 or 13 we expect to generate out of the fund balance or the PAYGO money will reduce at 22, 21?
That's already been taken into place, consideration.
So it'll still stay at 22?
Yes, we're currently at, if you look at, on page 26,
Well, I didn't mean to get you too far
oh, you're
ahead.
fine, you're fine. If you look at page 26 in the reference materials, you'll see the bond spent, it's a column, it's the third from, on the right-hand side, bond spent, not sold. You'll see that's a negative $21.2 million, so that means that we've spent that money already.
All right, we're not going broke, though.
We're not going broke. We're
Okay.
fine.
Thank you.
We're fine. So pretty much when we go to the bond sale and sell in July, we'll be reimbursing ourselves 100% of the money.
Okay, next we turn to page 8, which is the operating impacts of our capital improvement plan by year. And the only thing that's changed since our last meeting on this schedule is we removed the 2023 operating impact column, as you're going to see the requests individually when we meet to go over the operating budget requests in the coming months. Okay, turning to page 9. Pages 9 through 14 are our CIP projects with changes, and the directors incorporated the commissioner's requests from our last budget work session. And page 9 is our retrofit sidewalk program, and this includes the detail of Willows Road in that sidewalk project. Page 10. Roadway and safety improvements. The department is to evaluate a roundabout at FDR Boulevard and First Colony. Turning to page 11, this is our Fire and Rescue Revolving Loan Fund, which we've updated based on the impact from our fire and rescue squads. We've added $500,000 in 2026 and $400,000 in 2027 as funds needed for potential borrowing. One note I'll point out is the legislative appropriation of $5 million. This will exhaust that final amount available for appropriation to this fund.
So once we meet that $5 million, it'll be truly a revolving loan fund. As loans are paid off and any interest that's earned, that'll be the money that'll be available, unless new legislation goes forward to increase that $5 million amount.
Okay. Page 12. We have the Lexington Park Charlotte Hall Library renovations, and this was updated to include the appropriate description, and $20,000 was added to architect and engineering fees to account for both libraries.
Okay, I had some questions here. Now tell me, we haven't had long to do an assessments of either of these facilities unless I'm mistaken. Have we had enough time to do an assessment to understand these are accurate numbers?
So right now, we added the $20,000 for the assessment, but I believe Michael Blackwell is coming back in March with a report
A master plan.
Okay.
to give more information on this.
And,
I believe Mr. Blackwell is here.
Is he here?
If you'd like to have him come
well,
up.
I mean, well, won't take long.
Thank you, Michael.
So you think these numbers are close?
Yes, and I have a draft of the report. It's still not finished. It should be by the end of March. Very reputable architecture firm HBM is working on it, and they are indicating, as Commissioner O'Connor asked the last time I spoke with you about this, that the Charlotte Hall Library probably, in terms of its function, is in need of renovation even more than
No,
Lexington.
I agree with that. But were you doing both
it's-
at the same time?
It depends on what you want to do. With HVA systems in both, this might be a little low, but I would say that this would cover the significant changes to the buildings that would be required to make them fully functional as 21st century libraries.
How do you feel about your $1 million from the state?
I feel really good about it. We were able to get 1.6 for Leonardtown. This year, Calvert, for their new library, got 2.5 million. I think that the need for these renovations and the case we can make for them, I feel very confident about the million, and I would hope to get more.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Blackwell?
This is until FY '28, so we've definitely got time to
We have time.
adjust the numbers as we get closer.
Yes. So if we get a better number, we can
Yep.
definitely update it.
And we'll be working with Mr. Whipple on that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your diligence on that project, Mr. Blackwell.
Okay, turning to page 13, we have Recreation Facilities and Parks Improvement, and there was just a project reallocation funding for court improvements and athletic field fencing.
Have we put any money or thought about any more about the pickleball or the bathrooms over there at Regional Park and any of the upgrades
I
there?
believe Mr. Shepherd was going to get back to you on that. I don't know if
Okay.
he has any information now.
Well, if it's later, it's later.
And he's coming up.
Sit closer to the front, sir.
Yeah. last Tuesday when you entered that in, we don't have any price quotes yet for those 2 bathrooms. I kind of know what the pickleball courts are, and then you want to see some changes for that the next time we meet, or possibly. Are we saying to use our same bottom line number or increase, or how would you want to do that, recreation
Well,
park
I
facilities?
mean, it's up to the majority of commissioners, but my thought would be is if we have enough in fund balance
Okay.
to do the lights and do those bathrooms.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
No, I mean, it might be something we can squeeze out.
I think we could, and those prices should be in as soon as possible, working with our vendors.
Well, I played pitch to those 2 ladies yesterday,
They remind you?
and they asked me about it.
Working on it.
I just don't want to bump any of the projects we've already got in the queue here.
No, I'm not interested in doing that either.
Okay.
But
Thank
if
you.
we get a number on this, if it's something reasonable.
Right, and we'll have extra
Soon as I can.
pay-go. We have extra fund balance that we could infiltrate, since we only needed to use 13 million. So,
Okay.
And any questions while I am here about those changes? Those are just regarded to last week when we moved the athletic field lights in, and then we took them, paying for them now, and moved this year's court projects into FY '24.
Good.
All balanced out.
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Shepherd.
Okay, moving to page 14, this is Chopticon High School. This is just a correction of an error. The 3.9 million was in the balance to complete last year, so it should have moved to 2028 in our last budget work session. Any more questions on the CIP changes?
All right, I'm going to do impact fee calculation, and you'll see that on page 15. This is a consistent calculation. This is actually the 5th phased-in year, so the last update for impact fees, because you know that legislation was approved for excise tax. So you can see, so for the dwelling size, the total calculation per dwelling for 0 to 1199 is going to be $1,740. 1,200 to 2,399, 1,957, and any homes over our dwellings above 2,400 will be 2,175. So you can see the calculation above. You know, we do that for the Board of Ed, the roads, and the Parks and Recreation. The total fee, before we do any reductions for the other revenue, is $14,924. Then again, you see the reduction of the $9,399. We do that because that's based on the average debt, and of course, the debt is paid in the general fund. So that's really being covered by your property tax and your income tax revenue. And then less the amount of the transfer associated with each new dwelling is $3,350, and that's being covered by revenue received in the transfer tax, leaving the balance of $2,175. So like I said, this is the 5th year. We had the study group that did the calculation back in 2018 for the 2019 budget. And you can see when we started this phase in, we were up around 6,000, and then year 2 was still in the 6,000, and then we dropped. What happened is the change in the Board of Ed projects where we updated the calculation because the Board of Ed projects were no longer in for new schools. So we updated it, and that's why it significantly dropped over the next couple of years. So like I said, this is the last year for the impact fee, FY 2023. We will be including in the finance operating budget is a request for a calculation for a excise tax. So we've already gotten a price from well-known company Tischler Bice, and they've given us an estimate of $95,000 to do this calculation, which we can use fund balance for. And they also, because it's a non-recurring cost, and they also indicated that we might be able to even put that cost inside the calculation of the excise tax. So I think that's a great idea. We don't have the expertise in finance, or I'm not sure anywhere else in county government to have this outside company complete this calculation. And it is going to be a different calculation because it's going to be looking at different things, probably in addition to what we're already reviewing, schools, roads, and parks and recs. Okay?
And the impact fee, I mean, in excise tax, roads, schools, that all goes away as far as a
Exactly.
requirement.
So FY 2023, so you can't have 2 fees. So when the impact fee goes away, it'll be replaced with the excise tax.
But it replaces the three that are specifically.
Right, and then we'll come back with components during FY 2023 as that fee is developed and that calculation is developed with them. And then again, we can look at, this is residential, we'll look at commercial, we'll have them, we'll come to you and kind of find out exactly what would you like to see in that calculation. And then we'll have them help and come up with the calculation, and then we'll present that, and then have you approve it prior to going forward for the FY 2024 budget.
So you're looking right now for consensus from us on this calculation here?
Yes, to
I'm
approve
good with
the...
it.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm
I'm good with it. Everybody good with it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. All right, the next 2 pages, this is something you probably haven't seen before that I thought, well, it's kind of timely. This is our schedule for when we sell the bonds for the next time, that $30 million. And it's really, once you start, it's like a 6-month process, okay? So the first significant item is on page 16, and that's on May 17th. So we will bring you the resolution to approve the bond sale on May 17th, okay? We'll be updating prior to that time, we'll be updating the public offering statement, and of course, that'll include update numbers for 2021 audit and the 2023 budget that you approve in May. So it is kind of a good timing to do this because we'll be able to put the latest audit and then the latest budget, okay? And then if you look at page 17 on the top, where it says June 15th through 16th, we're actually going to have all 3 virtual presentations on one day. It's going to be a marathon bond rating day. And that's normally, the group that would present is normally me, Chris Casalemas, County Administrator, and then Commissioner President Guy's always been there to help us. And then Jody will be there, and probably Economic Development might have Kelly there, just in the room. And the last time we met over at room 14, and we did the presentations, and we actually called the 3 different rating agencies. So we're really hoping that we can get that AAA this time. Because right now, we currently have a AA+ with Fitch, AA+ with S&P, and then a AA1 with Moody's.
We're still using those same advisors, what's that?
Yes, Y River.
Y River?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. So they start off, and we'll have an organizational call on March 16th to kind of start talking about updating the public offering statement. So, and then we'll do our competitive bond sale. That's going to be on July 19th. So that is FY 2023. We skipped selling in FY '22. And then we'll bring you the formal awards that afternoon, probably around 1-ish. The sale's at 11. And then we'll close the bonds on August 2nd. Okay? And I know we've already reserved room 14, but with the primary election on June 28th, I'll have to see. I start thinking about maybe early voting. I don't know if they
don't use it
They didn't
here
use that room anymore?
anymore, not here.
Okay.
Not
All
here,
right,
no.
so there's no conflict.
We'll be using the 3 fire departments, yeah.
Okay. All righty. So now we're going to go back to Jody, and she's going to talk about the updated income tax calculation.
Okay, if you could turn to page 18, please. So the first calculation up top, this is our tax distribution by year for the last 6 years, and we received the final payment for tax year 2020. It was $1.4 million, and that brought the 6-year average up from 4.5% to 4.74%. The next calculation is the 2020 tax revenue with 4 growth rate scenarios between 4.5 and 5.25, and that's based on the tax year. And then below that are the same 4 growth scenarios converted to our fiscal year. And then you asked us to project revenue with a 4.5% growth rate assumption with 3% income tax rate. And we've done that on page 19. So if you turn to 19, you see the snapshot of the 4 same scenarios with 3 different tax rates. The 3.1% is the current tax rate. The 3.05 and the 3% tax rate are for your consideration. And for every 0.05% you lower the tax rate, the revenue decreases by between $900,000 and $1 million. And for every 0.25% that you increase your growth rate assumption, you increase your revenue by about $700,000.
Okay, let me make sure I get my arithmetic right in my head.
Okay?
I've been used to a tenth of a point is equal to 2.8 million. Is that wrong now?
A tenth of a point.
All right,
It can't be a tenth.
Yeah.
to go from 3 to 3.1, I mean 3.1 to 3,
So 10 basis points.
Right.
yeah, 10 basis points. What would that number equal?
Well, realistically, if you go from the 3.1 to the 3, it's about 1.9.
1.9 million.
1.9.
A little under 2.
Well, that's even cheaper than I thought. I thought it was 2.8.
Yeah.
So that's
The
good.
2.8 number sounds familiar from last year, but I can't
Remember that
recall
number from somewhere.
what scenario that was.
That might have been when we
Excuse me.
dropped from the 3.17 down to
So a
310.
tenth of a point's going to cost us 1.9 in lost revenue.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
So in December, you gave us direction pretty much to go with the 3% at 4.5. Do we have direction to change anything or go to a higher growth
Good with 3%.
percentage? Huh?
I'm good with 3%.
3%,
Go to 3 and 4.5 as you have stated.
as I stated.
Yeah.
So at
Oh, well, let's talk it over
4.75.
again. What are we talking about now? 3%?
So right now, you gave us direction back in December to go with the 3% rate and the 4.5%
Oh, 3.0,
growth.
yes, and growth of 4.5%.
4.5.
Right, so now.
I think the growth can go higher. though.
Yeah, well, that's why we presented it, and now that our 6-year average is now 4.74.
Right.
Would you like to go to the 4.75% growth?
If you look at all the numbers outside of this, the growth rate is actually higher than that. We've been way higher than that every year, higher than the 4.75. So,
Well, average growth right now, 4.74.
Yes,
Yeah,
over
but
the
that-
6 years.
yeah, but that's an average, that's the problem.
Average, that's average.
But I think what we got to keep in mind here, fellow commissioners, is that we're talking income tax only, okay?
Right.
Now, we know that was impacted by SALT. We know we didn't really get hit hard by COVID as we thought we would. But what we're talking about really is we're keeping flat rate on property, which is going to be more, and the assessments are going up, which is going to give us an upward pressure on property. The real estate market really hot. Our recordation and transfer, the pressure is up. So when we kind of base our revenue growth only on income tax, I believe we're doing a disservice to ourselves. I would say the revenue growth over and above your 474, if we were to factor in the revenue growth that came in from property, recordation, and
Right.
transfer,
This is just
Number would be
truly
over
income
5.
tax. Right, this is truly just income tax.
I agree.
Right.
But what we tend to do is we tend to use that income tax amount as the other ones don't exist or they're flat.
Right.
And my point to
You mean as far as the growth
commissioners
rate,
is-
we should include everything?
Well, my sense is this: if the real estate market changes and it goes negative,
Right,
obviously that can impact us negatively.
exactly. Yeah.
And that would go for transfer and recordation and property. But the trend we're seeing is up.
Right,
And I don't think it's going to change for the foreseeable future,
right,
as long as these rates stay low.
right.
I don't disagree with that, but I think we should impact or make the changes to those revenue sources. We shouldn't reflect those changes here on the income tax.
They're apples
What
and
I'm
oranges.
saying, though,
right.
is that if we keep our growth at 475,
Yeah, I'm okay with going to 475 on the growth rate.
well, I want to
No,
go to
no.
5.
I think if I'm understanding correctly, is that we're making a decision every year based on one source to set our growth rate, which is leaving out a factor that is not included. So when you look at what the state is saying, our growth rate is going to be near 7%. Every year, our growth rate has been severely underestimated, where it equates to a fund balance. So if you keep that factor in, and then you keep in what the state is projecting, minus an average, and you look at the actuals, the 4.75 is low. We should actually be somewhere up, 5.25, 5.5.
What is the state
For the actual growth
projecting?
rate.
Well, they actually projected 5.6 when we listened to that
Right.
guy from,
Yeah, but I think this was the sheet I'm referring to.
Well, you're looking at page 20 Remember, that's also the page that I had back in December. Because of the higher amount of income taxes that we received in FY 2021,
Right.
I'm trying to incorporate an additional bump to income tax just because we have received more. So it'll be a combination, and this growth is not included in the growth that's on page 18. It is overall, but that's kind of showing you the overage up and down over the last couple of years because of the SALT difference.
But we do have the quasi-anomaly of higher revenues and income taxes based upon the 3.17 and the 3.1 that we had.
Right.
So now we're looking to go back to 3.
Exactly.
Which would cause a decrease per se in revenue, although growth is factoring in.
Right.
So I think that the 4.74 or 3.74, 4.74 that you're reflecting is probably more accurate because the 3.17, 3.1 is going to decrease to 3, which
Right.
will cause a decrease in income tax. But as Commissioner Hewitt rightly points out, the property tax assessments are going up, which could counteract the income tax.
Right.
Yeah, and the other thing that's going to affect us, Commissioner Morgan, is this OPEB. We're not going to have to pay that $3.9 million out of general fund anymore. That is going to more than take up the slack we lose by the 1.9 from dropping a tenth of a point. Hopefully, we'll do something more on homestead tax. But we're going to end up with a positive now, and at least in this commissioner's opinion, of probably $1 million to $1.5 million of revenues coming in from money we're not having to put out of the out of pocket for the OPEB for retirement. That's.
I don't disagree. I'm sorry, are you saying that the growth rate should be 5?
I want to go with 5, because look, what I think. Oh, go.
No, I'm
I
not
wanna
saying
go with
anything.
5.
No, you mind, Commissioner Colvin?
Go ahead.
Okay. I have to agree with the analysis from Commissioner Hewitt on every single count related to the OPEB, the growth rate, and the incorporation, as well as the statistics that have come down from the state. It is a package deal. He's saying 5. I think we have room to actually go higher. But, overall, our trend is right there anyway. That's just my 2 cents on it.
So I'm not opposed to making the income tax growth rate at 5%. But I just don't understand the logic of trying to account for property tax increases here on the income tax.
Well,
Like, I'm not disagreeing with that at all. I'm just saying adjust those numbers too, if that's what.
No, I get your point, Commissioner Colvin. My sense to that would be this. We've always used this income tax as a barometer. And for the long as I've been hanging around here, at least in my first term, it was always 3%. Because income tax is very hard to pin down.
Okay.
You can have fluctuations in the employment and the economy, but what we've noticed, what we've seen, is the Navy base continues to hire. We've seen those salaries out there continue to go up. And we get the 3% piggyback or the 3.1 or the 3.17. So the pressure on that income tax is actually in an upward projection versus a downward. Now, let's say something goes wrong with the real estate market and those recordation and recording taxes tend to go down. Well, we got to be aware of that. That's why I don't want to plug them in. But I'll say what we've been lucky here in St. Mary's County is to be somewhat recession-proof. Now, this Mike Hewitt guy was sitting here a year ago saying, hold on, COVID, the other shoe's going to drop. The bottom's going to fall through. That hasn't happened. And I'm happy with that. So I think what we can do now is we know we have teachers who want 5%. We should give it to them. We know we got deputies who should give it to them. We've got employees. We should treat them all the same. But we don't, I think for us to take a conservative approach with the atmosphere that we have now, knowing OPEB, knowing revenue projections by the state, knowing the real estate market staying the way it is, I don't think we're derelict of duty to our constituency by projecting a higher revenue.
I don't disagree with that at all.
So are you saying that with the 5%, would be leveraging the property tax.
Some of the
As a, almost a
Kind of a buffer.
buffer, a cushion, to say, okay, we're at 5%. However, if something does, and this estimate is wrong, we're not factoring that into the actual income. To a certain, the growth rate, I should say.
Yeah, and the other thing is we get this high fund balance. So, I mean, I just think we're in a unique position to be able to provide more services, better pay for our people all across the board, and not raise taxes. We can actually cut taxes and do that, which I think is a very unique thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, look, I'm no smarter than anybody else here, but I've been thinking about this for several months now. And since I came to the conclusion that OPEB, or COVID, wasn't going to be as negative as I thought, that's changed my paradigm. That's
At least not to St. Mary's County.
been a paradigm shift for me, yeah.
Right.
So anyway, I'd like to go with 5%.
I'm fine with 5%.
I'll go with that.
I'm 100% good with that.
Everything,
So we'll
everybody
go
go
with
with that?
3% and 3% for the rate and 5% for the growth, please.
All righty. Sounds great. We'll do that.
Okay, sounds good. Everybody in favor of that, right?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Good.
Got a consensus.
Right. So that'll be incorporated. And Jody?
Okay, so on page 20, this is our state local tax impact calculation, where we concluded to add 4.3 million, which is the 6-year average, which is our difference of our tax collections compared to the budget. And this takes account any actual variance from our budget and any impact from the 2018 cap on your state tax deduction.
So that 4.3 then will be added to the 121.5 million on page 19. And that'll give you your total income tax estimate. And that'll be where we'll be starting with.
128?
121.
Okay.
The 121.5 will add the 4.3. And that's taking into consideration of the excess income taxes that we received last year and then the average over the last 6 years. Just so that we're not underestimating.
Of course, I like your statement here, the last thing, state income tax deduction on federal return.
Right.
That can make a big difference. Man,
Well,
we
if
can
the
break
law,
this.
if the legislation
law, if
changes
the-
and they
if-
change it, then that 4.3 we'll have to relook at.
If the state changes its rules and starts letting you allow deductions other than the federal,
That's going to,
or the SALT goes away.
right.
It's going to be a big
The state
difference.
is never going to touch that salt.
No.
They've
You
been
don't
too
think so?
dependent upon it.
They're not going to let you
So wait,
deduct.
do that.
The entire state is receiving so much revenue.
Oh, I know
It's
that.
not just St.
Oh,
Mary's
well, that's
County.
right. They're billions over, and we're a few
But
million over.
3.63 billion?
They're billions over. I know that, but still, that could change. That
Right.
could-
Once they get used to it, they won't want to let it go.
That's exactly
No.
correct.
So that's why we're
Well, I
wanting
do
to
hope you're
add
all
that
the right.
extra 4.
I love it myself. I don't want it to go away, but I don't know. We got to be cautious.
Right, so we'll look at this average and see where we are each year to kind of see where we are. We'll watch legislation. If anything changes in that respect, then that 4.3 could be something that we look at down the road.
Okay.
Okay?
So the last slide we have, or page we have on revenue is page 21, which gives you an overall revenue update, which will update the second line item for income tax for the 5% growth, 3% tax rate. You can see that we've added the 4.3 million in the income tax for the SALT. We'll also update our property tax. Right now, we have the 2023 estimate compared to the 2022 approved, an increase of 2.6%, but you'll see that go up slightly higher in our next work sessions.
Okay.
And of course, the property taxes, we just got our constant yield letter yesterday, so we have not calculated that yet. am pleased to say that our constant yield rate actually did go down a little bit. Last year it was 8.8290, now we're 0.8270. So it came down a little. So that'll be in the update in March. And then, of course, all of our other revenues, the rest, where it says 38.9, that'll be updated also to give us our total revenues for you in March. And it's good to have, it's good to get that decision now on your revenue so that we know what we're working with when we start looking at all the expense requests.
So you're on page 21?
21. And then our last page is page 22, the homestead tax credit. This is the same sheet you saw back in December. And then we need to get a decision today, and if you decide to change your 3%. So if you look at it, you'll see if you change it to 4 or 5, you get extra revenue. If you drop it down to 2, or 1,
The negative rent, there you go.
Thank
You hate
you.
to say that, I know.
I didn't even do all the talking. So, do we have a decision or any direction?
I mean, I'd like to push to go to 1. I think what we're doing here is we're helping people who are impacted by inflation. That's hitting them today. And there's many people who do not have an escrow, do not have a mortgage, that the bill they get when they get that tax payment, when they get that property tax payment in July, and it's gone up by whatever, that impacts those people directly.
Right.
People who are seniors, people on fixed income, and people who have had their houses handed down to them by their family. I know I keep beating this horse, but we can afford it. 1.9 and 400 is 2.3, maybe 2.4, but we're saving 3.9. That's a difference of 1.5, still to the good. So I want us to
So-
consider 1%.
I was happy to support, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago, moving it down to 3%. But right now, I think leaving it at 3% is a pretty reasonable place to
Why
leave
does it make it reasonable, given the money we get? Support.
I think it just, I think that's a safe expectation for increase there.
Well, the thing is, we're going to get the increases on properties that are not primary residences. We're going to get the increases on commercial properties.
Right.
So the only ones who get a break on this are the people who have a primary residence. Now, it doesn't help the renters. They don't get any help in this program. But the people who get the help are the people who have a home, and they're going to live in that home. They don't intend to sell it. They're just, you know, I think
I say leave it at 3. That's my vote.
I'm 1.
Leave it at 3.
The question I have is, what, in the overall numbers, what is the impact? How many residents do we have that are on the homestead property tax program?
I don't think I have that info.
I'm looking for the comparison that Commissioner Hewitt laid out, and the data behind it, where we're seeing where is the driving factor, where is the balance?
I think it might have been in our reference material. I think we have it. Okey-dokey, let's see. The St. Mary's, I'm looking at, if you have on the December 14th budget work session, if you look at page 60, we have approximately, for July 1, 22, there's about 47,458 properties, taxable accounts for property taxes, right? So at the 3%, there's about 7,075 properties.
So we're talking about impacting 7,000.
Right. And then those that are being impacted with the 2, that means they'll have an adjustment, will be 11,594. And then the 1% is going to impact 16,304. So that means that for the 3%, 7,000 are actually getting the credit.
Okay.
But the concern I have, following Commissioner Colvin's thought, is that this is accretive. And each year, as you drop it more, if we have an increase in our senior population, which we're seeing demographically, and that number keeps going up, then you will each year add more persons to that tax. So when you look at this number today, it's a flat number based upon a certain number of houses. If our senior population continues to grow and the number of houses continues to add to it, that number will continue to grow. It won't grow linearly, it'll grow to an exponential factor. I can't do that number in my head. I think, like Commissioner Colvin said, I think 3 is fair. We're at the second or third lowest in the state as it is.
Right.
And I never believe drive to the bottom.
It's not a matter of driving to the bottom, it's a matter of giving back to the people who have paid the most.
And we've
Look,
already
when you're
given
talking about
them
this-
another income tax break, which I think is fair to the whole population, and those people agree, those people would be part of that income tax reduction also.
No disagreement at all. I agree with it's about supporting or trying to impact as many people as possible. But what you're talking about, the population increasing, is seniors. People who've been paying taxes all their adult lives or while they've been working. And we've also, go back to OPEB. What we did with that thing early on in its inception, 2008, 9, 10, 11, and 12, we overfunded that. And by overfunding that, we collected more money from those people who were, if they were in their 50s or 60s or getting ready to go out of the workforce, were paying a higher number. They paid a disproportionate amount. This is a way to give it back to those seniors who are now getting ready to go out of the workforce, who paid those amounts in 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, when we should have paid $4.8 million, we paid $14 million. We should have paid $4.8, we paid $10 million. We should have paid $4.8, we paid $12 million. We took that money disproportionately from that age category, and this is just a way of giving it back. I don't think it hurts to help seniors, and I think that's what this does. It helps seniors and
Well, I think you're helping more than seniors in the applicability of this, because there are those that are also on fixed incomes. There's, those that, regardless, when you're talking about the 1% that have mortgages, we have a very high veteran population. I think you are impacting more than just seniors. I know we constantly speak about seniors when we're talking about these because normally their houses are paid off. But when you're talking about a fluctuating mortgage based on the assessments every 3 years, and they do have escrows, but when you're an increase of $200, a month, or even $150 to a mortgage, in some households, especially single-income households, can be significant.
Right.
And that's why I'm looking at what the total number of households impacted, set aside from the other properties that are not affected, and what is the number that's reflected here on the decrease of just those that are eligible for that particular homestead credit. So the
Right.
reduction for those, so we'd be losing $430,000 from the base, right? Not the base, but the base.
Right, on page 22, if you go down to 2%, you're losing about $229,000, because it's capping the assessment growth each year.
What would be the increased revenue from the other properties that are not? How does that offset? How does that $430,000 offset on the other properties that are not eligible for this? Does it equal itself out? Is it negligible?
Well, they're already pretty much closely to where the market price is, so they're not being impacted. They're already at the top where their assessment already is. The ones that are receiving the credit are the ones that haven't reached to where their full assessment is. So they have that growth each year. So right now, at the 3%, their assessment's going to continue to grow that 3%.
Right.
The ones that are already close to the market, which is on this sheet, it's about your 10%. There's a smaller amount of those taxpayers that are at that level, because most people are down at the lower, and they're not at the top where their full assessment is. So they're not really, that's why you have a smaller number of those that are impacted, because there's not that many that are at pretty much market.
So when we talk about lowering this in the big picture, what we're lowering how much income comes in on an annual basis, but in the long term, once the assessment gets to where it's supposed to be, it equals out.
It'll take longer for people to get to their full assessment.
Right. So it's not.
Reduces county revenue.
Right. It reduces the county revenue on an instant impact. However, in the long term, that revenue will be regained.
Right. As the assessment increases,
Right.
It slowly increases by your assessment cap. Now, if for some reason the assessment drops, it's an immediate reduction to your assessment. Like what happened a couple of years ago when all the assessments dropped. We're just now coming back. If you look at it, the chart. or if the property is sold. The property is then, the assessment is set at the sale price until the next assessment goes
Well, if
forward.
you can't support 3, can you support 2?
I'm sticking with 3. I think we've gone from 5 to 3, and where we are right now, I think 3 is a very fair number across the board for continuity's sake.
I'm staying with 3, too.
I'll go with 2.
So 962, what we're looking at is a reduction of 182,241 from 962,
Well, we're looking at, for FY 2023 is the first column, sorry. It's 229,000,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
yeah. We've got, he gave us 2 years' worth of information, which is great. It just shows you how it changes from one year to the next. But truly, for FY 2023, if you went down the 2%, it'd be a reduction of revenue by $229,849. And again, these are all estimates. Your assessments go up and down over time. This is just at a point in time that we received this.
If you don't need an answer this second,
We have to set up so they can do the
I've got to
budget.
send info to the state,
One of the first things.
this second?
March.
This second?
Not this second,
That's what
sir.
I meant by, if you don't need an
Today,
answer this
today.
second.
No, no,
Yeah,
no.
I need a little bit more time if we can,
Okay.
if Mr. President doesn't mind, if we can go ahead and move on. But I just want to run some more of these numbers before I make a solid decision on it.
Sure.
That's it.
Well, that is the last page of our
That discussion.
discussion. So, but you know what?
That's why I asked.
We've got some reference material I can kind of walk you through if you need some more time. Again, like I said, we got our constant yield yesterday. That information provided us the new constant yield rate, which we'll be using in the calculation. And then we have to, hopefully with the legislation they're proposing, that maybe some of these restrictions will be reduced, which is a good thing, long time coming, right? And you can see, if you go back to page 24 in the reference material, this is our current unexpended through January. And some of the projects that I'm kind of getting ready to look at, that I'm thinking that'll be for the bond sale, are the ones I kind of look at it, where if you look on page 24, the first one I would think I would include would be the roadway and safety improvement, because you can see that the bond's not sold, that $2.8 million. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, how are we spending it? Because I want to make sure that when we do sell the bonds and for what projects, that we're able to spend the money, because we have that 3-year rule. Okay? So if you look at, still on page 24, you'll know that right now, the bond sold for 2020, I think we have a little bit left on that. And hopefully we can, it's like $242,153, and you'll see that on page 25. And that is for the Leonardtown Library Garvey. So I think the final punch list, was supposed to be completed soon. So as soon as that project is complete, we'll come back to you with a resolution to close that $242,000 and move that to another project that we haven't sold yet. And then you can see, we kind of go through, and then on page 25, so like I said, I'm looking for projects where we've kind of have spent over $1 million. And there's a lot this time for public schools. They have a lot of projects that looks like that might be included in the bond sale. Okay? And then on page 26, it looks like I probably would sell the recreation facility and park improvements, because that's now over $1 million. So just on those few projects, I've totaled up about $27.7 million. Okay? And then we'll bring back the resolution in May. On page 27, this is our current analysis of the income taxes, the receipts that we received this year compared to what we received last year, the same time. So you can see that we just received that January payment for FY 2022, $1,850,000. 1.4 of that was the final payment on tax year 2020. The rest of it was for interest and fiduciary payments and any other payments that might have been received for past fiscal years. So if we had gotten money from tax year 19, that would have now been trickled in, and that's part of that undistributed amount. But you can see the percent cumulative. We are still under right now. What a difference a year makes, right? we're down. Compared to our payments received in FY 2021 to the payments that we've actually received this year in FY 22, we're still down about 8.4%. I'm getting my percents wrong. Down about 8.4%. So the next big payment we're waiting for, and I'm hoping that it's a nice payment, is in February at the end, and we'll have that hopefully the day before our next budget work session. So you can see last year we got the 32.2 million. The payment that we receive this February is going to be all tax year 2021.
Which is 3.17.
Yeah.
So probably it would.
No, that's still 3.17, you're
So
right.
it should probably be a decent-sized payment,
I'm
considering
thinking.
all the late accruals will be coming in
Yeah.
for late filings.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm hoping that's a nice payment, and then that'll be good. And the reason why I have that solid line that comes across, once we get that March payment, we're not going to receive any more income tax payments until after the budget is approved. So I'm hoping that February payment puts us back in the positive.
Yeah, but if
Even-
your March payment is negligible at the end
It
of the
is,
day.
it really is.
But even, well, the February is going to be a big factor, and it's
Right.
going to be a good barometer.
I think so.
But I'd still say, when we were up 18.5% last year over, 8.4 negative,
That was not a normal year, right?
again, this 8.4 is not as bad as I expected.
Right.
If we were up 18.5, I expected us to be down 18.5. No. This is manageable.
I think we're still going to be there.
Yeah, this is
Because we get a lot of the big payments after, like you can see in May, June, July, and August.
Yeah.
That May and June payments will be like, so your May is going to be your first payment on, our first payment on tax year 22, the year we're in now. Okay, so that's going to be an indicator. But again, like I said, you don't really receive that until after your budget's approved. So this is, I'll be bringing back more news to you, but I'm hoping that February, that's going to be all tax year 2021 will be high. Okay, and then page 28, those are the reports that we received. And so you can see Table 1, tax year 2020, the final reconciliation, there's the 1.473, and that amount was added to what you saw in December, and that's what pushed us up to the 4.74%. Okay?
Ms.
Page.
Cudmore,
Sir.
just to interrupt you, I had a chance to look at a few things and run some numbers, and while I completely understand Commissioner Hewitt's point, keeping in mind that some of the highest demand placed on our public safety services is the senior population, and even though we look at the $14 million that we overpaid, that was every taxpayer in the county that bore that burden, and all the demands that are being placed on county government right now with the expansion of services, I don't feel it would be prudent to drive that down any further, so I'm going to have to agree with Commissioner Colvin and Commissioner Morgan on the 3%.
You win some, you lose some. Huh? Tomorrow's a new day.
But I will acknowledge, I do appreciate your input on that, Commissioner Hewitt. It was actually very valuable.
All right, so we'll maintain that 3%. So that's pretty much, of course, that is the entire package. I went through some of the, what we had in the back, and since we have extra time, I might as well continue for a little bit and work our way through it. If you look at page 29, that's where you can see the amounts of the tax year. So you can see tax year 2020, there's the 104 that we used in the chart previously for income taxes. There's the tax year 2019, and then the tax year 18. Those numbers come directly from what the state sends us. And then on page 30, you can see the actual returns that have been filed for each of the different tax years. So you can see that we had an increase of 860 returns in tax year 2020, and we had tax year 19 over 2018, we had, over 1,000.
Yeah.
So, I mean, our returns are higher. We're in one of the counties, you can see for the state that the returns increased by 0.8. And you can see where the returns were reduced, and ours was one of the ones that increased.
It means we're growing.
That's exactly,
thing.
exactly. And then on page 32, this is where I got some of the information for the impact fee calculation. This is the brief economic facts. We get this from our Economic Development Department, and they get it from the State Chamber of Commerce. And I'm so excited that we got this because the last report that we had gotten and included in our FY22 budget is from 2019, and they really didn't update it for like 2 years. So this is the first update that we received actually for a couple of years. So it's got a lot of great information in this report. It talks about the location, the climate, the age, the distribution. You know, on page 33, it talks about employment, hourly wages, the major employers. Page 34, it shows you the schools, the tax rates, and the income, how it's distributed, and then a little bit of transportation and recreation parks and utilities on page 35. And then on page 36, this is your fiscal year 2021 medium residential sales by quarter. This is, you can see the highlight that 335 for St. Mary's County. That number was used in the impact fee calculation, and I believe the number that came from the prior year was only 309,000. So the residential sales, the prices have gone up, and that's what's driven the increase in the transfer tax and the increase in recordation tax.
I mean, that was like $299, not...
Right, it was like 309, and I think it was 299 the year before that. So the prices have gone up, I mean, but it's statewide. The average for the state is 369, okay? So I believe that we received all the direction that we needed. We needed to have you approve the impact fee calculation, which you did. You approved, now do you approve the CIP project changes that were on page 9 through 14?
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. You approved to continue the 3%. And you gave us further direction on the income tax, doing a 5% growth, a 3% rate.
3% tax.
Well, with that, do you have any further questions? And if not, we are done for the day.
I do, actually. I know 2 commissioners went out and had a chance to see the YMCA on the Eastern Shore.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and I've seen them before. They're amazing facilities. Based on the briefing, and I don't want to take the words out of Commissioner Guy's mouth, but they 4,500 people signed up within it being open. What I would like to see is where is the money, and I was going through the CIPs for the A&E. Do we have any money in the CIP for the A&E yet for the
Well, let's go back.
You're 581 next year.
Right.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Let's go back and look at that project sheet.
Yeah, thank you.
That in this book today?
Yeah, it's 545 this year, 581 next year.
Let's see.
What page is
In the
that?
back in the reference material, if you go back, and it's on page 38.
Thank you. I was perusing through to try and find it, and I must have missed it.
It's okay.
Okay.
So you can see, funded in prior year was $525,000, and included in this budget for 2023 is the $581,000.
But we haven't spent the 545.
Right, the 525 is still right.
Is that all the funding that's going to be needed for the actual A&E? Is that the appropriate amount?
I think we figured $1,031,000, 8%.
Okay.
Well, we did not receive an updated sheet, Mr. Shepherd. Does that estimate need to be changed at this time?
Well, from the visit we had yesterday with the YMCA, is they built that one over there in Chestertown, very impressive, 55,000 square feet for $13.9 million. And they are saying that we should probably be prepared for $15 million because of inflation. They got in before the big increases in steel or whatever these materials were. And what they're running into right now is supply chain with outfitting, putting the furniture and putting the different equipment they need. They're having trouble getting that. But they said the inflation factor, we should factor in. So,
Yeah, Michael, I want to make sure it's accurately reflected. And while we have a YMCA presentation coming up, I don't know that we need to wait for another presentation in order to get the project approved. unless there's some legality beyond it, but I kind of just want to solidify the project at this point and get it moving forward.
Right.
Based on the way it's laid out here, I see it's in FY25, the funding's there. I would like to see a federal funding source included in there, anticipated, based on a request from the feds.
Federal earmarks.
Right, federal earmarks.
Right.
I believe there may be $2 million, if I'm correct. Is that the conversation?
We have to actually get that request in front of you. Yeah, for the federal earmarks. I think that comes like in March timeframe. We haven't received the updated forms yet and request. So once we get those and we calculate it, I need to work with Mr. Whipple and the others that might have projects that qualify for the federal earmarks. Then we'll bring that back with the applications and then submit those up. But at this point, we don't have that dollar amount yet.
Okay.
Until they come back. We'll submit for it and give them information about our project and what we think based on prior conversations that we've had.
Right.
I think it was with Senator Cardin's or Van Hollen's office.
It would be wise to wait until the 1st, when we finally get our last bit of information back from YMCA. Now, what they told us yesterday is this Build Back Better bill that has not been passed and has not been, well, it's been held up, let's put it that way, that the earmarks haven't been approved. Now, they still expect that it'll come back in increments will get passed. But that's a great question to ask them on March 1st. But what they're prepared to do then, I mean, I won't speak for Commissioner President,
you're
speak
right.
for yourself. But they said that, what we need to understand is for them to come in and move forward, they would bring a person in here who does this revenue development, this fundraising. They would actually move that person here. We met him yesterday. He's done over 100 YMCAs. He's very knowledgeable in that process. And their point is come March 1, if we can give them the commitment that we're going to go forward with the A&E, so they have artist renderings to show. They have, they can do their show and tell to potential donors. That obviously makes it easier to raise money. But secondly, that they need the county to commit to, we're going to build this thing. Now, if we're not going to build it as a YMCA, then maybe we're going to build it as a community center. Then we have to look at that paradigm shift from, if we take and build it as a YMCA, they pay all expenses.
Right.
We don't have to pay for the enclosure of the pool on Great Mills, which we've been told cost us around $250,000 a year to try to keep that thing warm in the winter, and it gets very hot in the summer. So I guess my point to you, Commissioner O'Connor, is if we can wait till March 1 and be prepared to make a commitment on that day, at least we'll have these people sitting in front of us and we can flesh out the details.
So there is a presentation planned on the morning of the March 1st.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see the need for waiting for another presentation. I mean, the last presentation was adequate, and individual conversations with the other commissioners, it seemed that was the consensus. I'd like, for the Great Mill site, and at least giving the commitment, if we can give them the commitment now that we are committing to the architectural and engineering, we are committing to the project, it changes the tenor of that meeting.
Right.
Versus prolonging that conversation. The money's in the budget, it's already scheduled. I don't see a problem with committing to that this way.
Well, that shows your commitment right there, that you're including it in your CIP plan.
I just think, I agree with you 100%, and I think that's why it hasn't been formalized with a motion, and that's the issue. So I think it changes the tenor of the meeting on March 1st of how do we move forward versus waiting to move forward again from there.
Okay.
Well, let me just tell you, though, they're prepared. They're in the final stages of giving us that final presentation, which talks to the inclusion of a warm water pool and the exclusion of the warm water pool and the cost of the facility one way or the other, and for us to make a decision based upon how we want to move forward.
Okay.
And I just think for us to change that, well, we can, but I would like to hear from them and we may,
Well, I mean,
look, you guys know where I'm at.
Yeah.
I've been behind this thing since the get-go.
yeah, you have, and I definitely applaud your efforts on that. I just think that we have an opportunity, now that we're talking CIP, that this is, a mission statement, so to speak, but we can change the tenor of the meeting on the 1st based on the account that was there.
I think it'd be good for Robbie Gill to know when he's coming over here that we are already.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, we
yeah.
can communicate that in a text message, but my point gets to be, let's hear the words come out of our mouth that
I would
says,
tend to concur, split vote. I think Commissioner Hewitt's right. Hear what they have to say. I think Commissioner O'Connor's right to move the A&E. However, my question becomes, when you say they built it, was it public or private money?
here's the deal, it's public money.
Oh, no, in the Kent County one, did they build it with private money or public money?
Oh, they had one donor that gave $11 million.
Agree, okay, so it's private money.
Well, let me just say this, it took 17 years to get there.
I
Now,
understand
if we
that.
want to take 17 years to get it here, and what we have to understand, Commissioner Morgan, is they have that, I'll use the term alumni of YMCA over there. YMCA's been on the Eastern Shore since 1857.
Wow.
Now, the key gets to be, it's like when Riken, which is a wonderful facility, wanted to build what they built over there. The same people, the Donnie Williams group, I can't remember what it is.
Donnie Williams Center.
They talked about that group would be involved in could be, I shouldn't say they will be. But there are other sources of revenues that YMCA does that they can call upon on a national level. These groups support YMCA's on a national level. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if we don't do the first one, we'll never get the second one or the third one. And if we're going to wait for people in the area to come up with an $11 million donor, or a $9 million donor as they had in Queen Anne, or a $7 million donor as they had in Talbot, I'm not sure we're going to get there. So if we don't go with the YMCA model of where they have these people committing to YMCAs, and we want to go with the model of we're going to build a community center, which we're going to run ourselves and have the overhead and the cost involved, that's a paradigm shift. That's what we have to decide. But we've had this community center on our CIP now for a long time.
I don't disagree. We've had the community center on the CIP for a long time. The YMCA became an anomaly to that community center.
But again, it's because they'll pay everything.
It sort of took the place of, what it's doing now, in our conversation yesterday, what they would do is, they will reduce this cost. They were going to move somebody over here permanently to solicit funds from individuals and companies or whatever. This guy's going to come over, been doing it for 30 or 40 years, whatever it was, been doing it, and he's going to actually move here and will, for the next couple of years, be soliciting monies. So we commit to make sure that it will be built, and that this will be reduced depending on how much money he finally gets. He might get $10 million. We don't know. He thinks for sure he'll get at least $5 million. So I don't know. I think we're looking at this cost right now based on us paying it all.
The worst scenario.
That's worse. This is the worst scenario. But they want that commitment before they even jump in the door and start this.
And I think the thing that they've got going for them is there's already a hugely motivated group here that's going to assist.
And
with
they're ready to come over and do this.
Mr. President,
Look,
with-
they're on the Eastern Shore. For them to come over here, there's a big thing in the way. It's called Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah.
So for them to even want to come over here, they have to believe there's a chance of success. And they said that our initial offering, or whatever that study we did, that talked to 10,000 people willing to, they said that was phenomenal. That was one of the best they'd ever seen. So, I mean, I equate it to like when the Lowe's moved in. And boom,
Yeah.
that thing took off. It was one of their biggest, and it continues to be. So I still envision one in Lexington Park, one in Leonardtown, and one in Charlotte Hall. We have the land, but we got to get the first one first.
I'm willing to move forward and hear what everybody has to say. I mean,
Well-
Commissioner O'Connor has a position, you have a position.
So on the sheet, yeah, on the sheet, you'll
wait till the
see,
Excuse me, Mr. President?
On the
About the
sheet,
5
wait,
million.
wait, so what do you say, Ms. Conlon?
on the sheet on page 38, you can see that the project's in here for about 16.9 million.
Right.
If you look at FY 2025, that $5 million that's down there in other sources, that is the fundraising money
Well,
that we have.
But look, that may have to be committed by us, okay?
Okay.
Under the idea that they won't come and start looking for the 5 million unless they know it's there.
Right.
So,
But-
the purpose of me bringing this up is because this is the conversation I don't want to have on March 29th, when they're actually slated to come here.
They're coming.
March 1st.
March 29th is the federal earmark
Right, the
discussion.
federal earmarking, I'm sorry. And look, great presentation before, and, you know, I think there needs to be a level of commitment before they come over here. This is a CIP project, and with that said, Mr. President, will you entertain a motion?
I mean, it's like a 180 shift from where it was November 19th. I'll never vote for one of these things again. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
What do you want to
this is
do?
all new to me.
You want to do it now, or what?
Well, I'm
You
asking
want
you.
to wait till March 1st?
I just would like to say, let's hear what they got to say,
Well, I mean,
because they're marching.
It's a point of order,
I think
I'd-
that time in March 1st, we'll get more information from them, and maybe at that point, we can move with the
I mean,
motion.
if you want to make the motion, then
Well, can
Yeah,
we make
I
the
mean-
motion to narrow the site? Because that's the motion
Well,
we
that's-
didn't make the other day.
that,
Can we narrow the-
and that's where I'm going with it is.
Right,
We didn't actually make that motion.
Right,
that one.
and that's what, I'm trying to get that out of the way so they can be more prepared, and we can get this going to where it needs to
hey,
be.
they're already figuring on Great Mills as a site.
already figuring on Great
If you want to
Mills.
go that direction, fine.
Yeah, well,
I mean, it's,
Well, what I heard, I'm telling you right now, it's going to be, they have one model. It's a YMCA with a warm water pool.
well, and
We're not entertaining anything else other than that.
that, and that's my point, Mr.
Yeah.
President. We know what is inevitable,
Right.
and I don't see the point in waiting until they come again to do it. We have as much clarity as we're going to get at this point. So if they can come here and give their presentation, knowing,
They're wanting to do that because they're going to explain to you how they work the fundraising part, and he may even bring the guy who's going to be actually moving over here and doing that.
and that's my point. If they have something concrete to go on, and Commissioner Hewitt is
They would
correct.
probably love to hear it that day to say, we're going to do this, and we're going to, right now, we're going to put this in our CIP.
Right, and if we can send that message to them now and they come over here prepared, they can have the person that comes over and they can start doing what they need to do. I mean, yeah, it's a 180, you know, I thank Ms. Greenberg, I thank
Doesn't really
Paul.
matter when we do it, I suppose.
Yeah,
I don't-
well, here you
We're all
go.
committed to it.
Well, Mr. President, I make a motion to approve the YMCA at the Great Mill site as presented from the YMCA at the previous meeting.
Second?
there you go.
Okay. Yeah, is that all right?
Fine with me. We'll update the CIP sheet.
Okay, we got a first and second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I recognize have it.
So we'll make a change to the CIP sheet for the March 1st budget work session to be at the Great Mills site. We're going to keep the dollars and everything in here the same. And then the final item is that, so we come back on March 1st
Right,
with the follow-up CIP
right.
and begin the operating with the budget education request. We're going to bring you back revenue. That'll now include property tax and all the other revenues with the updated income tax that you provided today. Okay? And then the expenses will show you the baseline, kind of how we show the baseline before, and with all the ECCs, all the requests for additional monies that the departments and everybody submits. And we'll be going over the Board of Ed's request, okay, their ECCs. And then that'll be the final budget work session that we'll take to the Planning Commission for our CIP on March 14th. Okay?
I just texted Robbie, he's approved 5 million.
Yes?
That was fast.
And called me, and called back.
okay.
He and I
Right, you calling all the time.
He and I talking our sleep.
No.
I know.
Okay.
I think it'll be very successful myself. I'm all for it. I think it's going to be fine.
And there's no doubt it was a 180, you know?
It'll be a transformation for the whole county.
Yeah.
All right, is there anything else? Are we
I think we're
done?
done. I thank you for all your direction.
Okay,
And we'll
good.
see you on the 1st.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Budget work session over. Thank you.